The beginning, day one, was firing myself in my head and saying, I've hired the best leader that I respect, and this person has been wildly successful. And then what did that person do? What was the mindset that they had?
Leaders lead by example. It's not just this is how you properly execute a contract. No, it's be human. If you sit and say a speech, it's like, yes, we care about mental health, but people don't feel safe to open up. It actually does worse.
The world is very complex and it's fast changing, and as soon as you think you've figured it out, then you have all the answers, and I think that's when you find yourself in danger.
If you could get in a time machine and go back and talk to 20-year-old Marius, and you maybe just had 5 minutes with him, like, what would you tell him, knowing what you know now? Hello and welcome back to the Human Side of Construction podcast, where we provide construction leaders insights they need to improve the industry and the great people in it. I'm blessed today to have a great guest, Mr. Marius Tawembe. He's director at Pomerleau in the Special Projects Division here in the GTA. He spent 2 decades building a career and other careers, leading firms, the nationals, boutiques, even his own shop. And right now, his team is doing something quite remarkable, renovating a century-old heart house at U of T project while it's live. So all types of interesting projects. We do similar jobs at different firms, and today we're going to talk about what it actually takes to build a team, a culture, and a career in the part of construction that not many people talk about. Marius, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Angelo. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So we met probably longer ago than I'd like to admit now. It's probably 10 years.
I don't think both of us want to admit it.
Yeah. We were both in estimating. I think you were
Yep.
chief estimator and I was chief estimator as well.
Yep.
I forget what job we were pursuing and I don't think it worked out, but you're one of those people that I immediately kind of vibed with. I was like, I got to stay in touch with this guy. And I'm glad we have over the years. And I'm really excited to be talking with you today. So I like to start at the beginning. So everybody has a unique story on how they ended up in the industry and kind of their career arc. I don't want you to read your resume. I just want to hear, what drew you to the industry? How did you end up in it? And what were your first thoughts when you started working in it?
No, that's an interesting question, and it brings me back really to my roots back home in Cameroon, where I was born and raised. And really, construction is not something that I stumbled onto. I grew into it because my dad is an architect and a structural engineer, and till this day, I've never been able to talk shop with him because his work ethic and passion and is continue to inspire me today. And so I believe I was at the young age of about 14, I decided, I was going to follow his footsteps because really I had 2 loves, basketball and construction, and I never really grew into what I thought I'd be.
Mm-hmm.
And so construction was it for me. So I decided with my dad that I was going to attend a vocational school at the age of 14, where I studied civil engineering and architecture. And so really, this is probably what I was called to do. And I don't think I've ever worked a day in my life.
Oh, that's nice. That's good to hear for sure.
Yeah.
Was there a moment that you can look back and thinking like, obviously you had a background, like your
Mhm.
father was into it. And so you were probably inspired by him, but was there a moment when you started working where it clicked and you were like, yes, this is it. This is what I was meant to do.
Yeah, well, yeah, it goes back to the streets of the little town where I grew up in Bamenda, Cameroon, and I'd gone to basketball games with my friends, and we walk back home, and I would point out often, oh, my dad built this, my dad
Mhm.
built this, and there was a certain amount of pride and that I'd felt, and at that young age, I realized that construction would offer me an opportunity to be involved in projects that are larger and greater than myself, and probably be around, well past, my life on this earth. So I'd say it's probably, the pride of being involved in something that's bigger than yourself that led me to it.
It's so amazing. And I shared the same thought about construction. And I think, some people it's a day job and it's a way to make a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
But most people I talk to are very passionate, very proud about what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you explained it, the fact that we're not just putting together steel and concrete and issuing contracts and RFIs, you're contributing to
Absolutely.
humankind.
To human, exactly. It's like for me now, I've been now in North America for over 20 years, and the most impactful project that I've ever worked on in my life is probably going to be the Waha redevelopment project up in Musini. because it's a project that's going to serve community, that desperately need those facilities for hundreds of years to come.
Yeah.
And so for a kid that grew up in Cameroon to have had the opportunity to play a small role in that project, it's something that I cherish. So when those challenges come and those opportunities, to devote hundreds of thousands of hours to put those projects together, I jump at it and I never really see it as work. I see it, as me playing a small role.
Yeah.
Just good.
Yeah, and now you're in a leadership position, right?
Hmm.
But it probably wasn't always the case, right? You get started from the bottom.
Absolutely.
When
Yep.
when did you realize that, you were suited to leadership? Like, did you always kind of want to pursue that, or did somebody tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Marius, this is like this is the future for you," or was there a moment in time or a series of events that kind of helped you step into that?
Um, I'm the oldest of four, so I think my dad always expected a lot from me, and probably when he wasn't around, I had to step into that leadership's role, and whether things went good or bad, I was always held accountable for it. So I think I was groomed,
Mm,
to probably be a leader. And probably my first leadership role was founding and starting a choir at a young age of 12,
okay.
and being comfortable, being in front of the mass and leading, people that, 10, 20 years older than myself. I think my mom was actually part of the
Nice.
members of the choir and would be comfortable following my instructions, and whatnot. So it's I think it's something that I've always been comfortable with, the idea of leading, and it's probably the greatest responsibility that I have, and the greatest gift that I have, because to me it's about um, influence, and it's about inspiring people to achieve something that is within them. It's really, how do you pull out and make sure that they don't agree with their
Mm.
limitations, and they challenge themselves to achieve what I know they can.
Yeah, that's an amazing take on it, because I think when the first thing that comes to mind with a lot of people with leadership and coaching is you think about a team or a group of people,
Hmm.
but really that group or that team or that crew on a site it's comprised of individuals.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you could have, and I've seen it in sports, and I know you coach basketball as well.
Yep.
You can have a team of the best players in the world.
Hmm.
If they can't communicate and can't work well together, the team's not going to succeed. And I've seen the
Absolutely.
same thing on projects. You have super smart people, the best technology, the best estimate, the best schedule,
Hmm.
and for some reason it still doesn't work out and there's still conflict.
Yep.
So on leadership, like a couple questions, what do you think is the most important attribute of a leader, irrespective of construction or coaching, or like what's an important aspect of
For
leadership
me,
to you?
I'd say it's humility. You have to be humble and grounded,
Hmm.
because the world is very complex, and it's fast changing. And if as soon as you think you've figured it out and you have all the answers, and I think that's when you find yourself in danger. So for me, I always approach everything in life from a place of humility, and I think that enables me to stay curious,
Hmm.
about other people's perspective, and really approaching the conversation from, and not necessarily being set in a specific decision, allowing people to be able to influence me, and really to come to an outcome that that's where everybody has had a say and input.
Yeah. This is a topic that's coming up a lot in my life lately, and maybe the universe is trying to tell me something, but I feel like, especially in construction, right? Like we have this culture of being big, tough men
Mm-hmm.
in construction, having all the answers, not showing vulnerability or
Mm-hmm.
weakness. I think that's been confused with strength and power and
Mm-hmm.
leadership.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at it and you zoom in, I think it's the opposite. It's actually when you hide vulnerabilities or pretend like because you're supposed to have the answers, that's when you fall the hardest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think the most powerful act is relinquishing that power, like you said, humility.
Humility.
And
Exactly.
when people come to me with a question, and probably you the same, I have to stop myself from giving them the answer, even if I know what it is or what I think is best. I said,
Mm-hmm.
"What do you think?" And some people
Absolutely.
don't like it. Some people say, "Oh, I came to you because I want the answer." It's like, no, you have the answer within you. And it's no different when my kids come to me with things to happen at school.
Yeah.
That's the journey, is figuring it out, the hard part. Because if you just give answers, and I don't want to go on a side tangent here with AI and chat GPT, But all that does is give you answers. The journey is figuring the shit out,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely.
So on the flip side of that, so that's the positive attribute of leadership. In your experience, what's been the most challenging aspect of being a leader?
I like to be very authentic and candid with my feedback. And with some of my colleagues and some of the people that I report to, they often say something
Mhm.
that catches them by surprise. Especially in the initial stages of our relationship, I'd often tell them, I don't work for you.
Yeah,
And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I say, I don't work for you.
yeah,
I work for the man above, and
yeah.
to me, it's not because I'm disrespectful, because there's no ounce of disrespect in my nature. It's just to make sure that I'm clear that with me, I at least give myself the freedom to be able to tell them what I really think,
Mhm.
especially if we disagree and whatnot. Because I was raised to be respectful of my elders and people of authority,
Yeah,
and so coming from that culture, you don't necessarily talk back
yeah.
to your manager. You just agree with whatever they want. But I know that's not what's needed for us to be successful. So yeah, so I just tell it as it is.
Yeah, no, that's so I can share that experience too. And so I've done a little bit of coaching with my kids as well. And I've noticed the higher level they get, it's more about politics
Mm-hmm.
and parents and egos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And definitely in the corporate world, I've seen that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people, when I hear them talking, I'm like, are you, are you coming from a point of, what's best for you or what's best for the team or the company or
Absolutely.
whatever? And I've came out and asked that question a couple of times. People don't like it. People like to be challenged. But so I'll share my experience. The tough part about leadership is making tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole being connected to the human side and being empathic, which we both are, it's a double-edged sword. I think it's a strength because you're able to connect with people
Mm-hmm.
and they appreciate the authenticity and the genuine human connection.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I find myself having difficulty with hard conversations because might sound like fruity, but I don't want to hurt people's feelings. The first
Yeah,
thing that comes to mind when I have to make a tough decision is how that person's going to react. And
absolutely.
now I'm aware of that. Before it's caused issues in personal life and work, but now I'm cognizant, and it's still not easy. But that's the tough part. Of leadership is sometimes you have to make tough decisions. Not everybody's meant to be on the team or the journey, and I find it's usually when you have to make those decisions, it's better off for both people. If you have
Absolutely.
a team member who's not happy or not doing their best and not set up to succeed in that environment, you're doing them a disservice because they're not going to be happy and they're going to bring down the rest of the team too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a challenge there.
I'm not surprised by your answer, and because I've come to know that we are like-minded, and making tough decision is something that I struggled with, and so I actually did a lot of coaching on that, and meditating on it as well. I've
Mhm.
come to the conclusion that my job is to make sure that I love people. And part of loving people is making sure that I am candid and honest with them with feedback, especially when things are not working well. Because I naturally, I'm very good at encouraging and building people up.
Mhm.
But whenever it has to be a tough conversation, I overthink it very much like yourself. But I've realized that, if I need to get someone from point A to B, it's got to be both conversations. So really, I've used now a model that removes my emotions out of it. It's a
Mhm.
FIXO model where I really just focus on the facts, the impact, the expectation, and the opportunity, and be able to have the conversation with that person. And part of loving someone is usually actually releasing them to go and work somewhere where
Yeah.
they actually fit.
Yeah.
They may not fit with me or my team or my environment for multiple reasons, and staying in that relationship is not beneficial for anybody. So releasing people, I now see it as an act of love.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if you have to stay in that relationship that's not working for an extended period of time, I think it just makes you miserable for
Mhm.
everybody. And so I've had examples where people will call me after leaving and we still have a great relationship. Like, hey, thank you. At the
Yeah.
moment, it didn't make sense, but thank you for how you approached it and how the separation happened.
Yeah. And that's So it's funny, the word love, when I started this
Mhm.
podcast, I was like, I gotta not just say love.
Why?
It
It's
always
all
comes
about
up.
love.
Okay, so somebody asked me on one of a recent show, they said, what do you think the construction industry needs more of?
Yeah.
I said, I'm gonna get made fun of for saying this, but I said love. But I think,
It's one of
it's
our
care.
values at Pomerleau.
People
Yep.
people want to be cared for.
Yeah.
Call it love, respect, all that stuff.
Yep.
It's trust. They want to be trusted. They want to be able to do their job. And the biggest thing you can do for somebody, because love, like I take my relationship with my wife. We've been together
Mhm.
20 years.
Mhm.
We've always loved each other. Has it always been happy? No,
No.
because that's not part.
Yep.
They're two separate things, and I think a lot of people confuse it with the relationship's only good when it's going good. But to me, a good relationship is tested by the bad times.
Mhm. The growing pains.
Yeah, yeah, and everybody goes through 'em. So you mentioned it. You don't work for other people. You work for the man upstairs.
Yes.
So you mentioned you're a man of faith too. So let's
Yes.
dive into that a little
Mhm.
bit. What did that journey look like? Was there a moment in time? Was it always part of it? And how has faith kind of played a role in what's gotten you to where you're at today in your career?
It was all I was raised in a Christian family, and for most of my life I went to church because my parents made me. And then I had events in my life that had me questioning and really and keeping it real. I My heart wasn't in it, and because I had a lot of question, and part of it was losing my grandmother that I loved dearly,
Mhm.
and suddenly. And then for 10 years I was just not really into it. And then I had my Achilles injuries in 2022, and with that came, a lot of time
Mhm.
because a guy that loves to be active on the go and moving and doing a million things at the same time, but this really paused everything,
Yeah.
and then I had to rely on everyone around me to be able to get through. And in that process, really, something magical happening.
Mhm.
I found my faith again, and from that moment on, I decided, to lean into it, and not be private about it,
Mhm.
but to make sure that I'm respectful, and I help people understand, what makes Marius go. And so a lot of my leadership principles really come from reading and meditating,
Mhm.
the lessons that the Bible teaches me. And so I'll give you an example. There's a quote. There's a couple quotes actually that make me go every day. One says, I'm not quite sure who said this, but one says, "Your life is God's gift to you, and what you make of it is your gift to God."
Mhm.
So Marius is on the journey to make of his life the best gift that he can for God.
Mhm.
The other says, if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. But if you agree with God about your potential, you get to grow into it.
Mhm.
So I'm not a finished product. I'm in progress, and I have agreed with God that I have potential, and I'm on a journey to figure out, what that potential is.
Mhm.
So I usually always live my life thinking about, or being curious about, what the next actually what Marius looks like 5 years from now,
Yeah.
10 years from now, and exploring and discovering myself as I go.
Yeah. No, that's very impactful, and I think I've had a similar journey. Like I've had a bit of a complicated relationship with religion. I guess same. Like
Hmm.
I was brought up Greek Orthodox.
Hmm.
My parents made me go to church. It was actually my mom. My dad, he was a fence sitter. He didn't.
Yeah.
And I remember I got to the point where I was actually paying attention and learning stuff, and I found that a lot of the stuff talked about in the Bible and conversations are it's just values on how to live a good life.
Hmm.
It's just being a good person,
Hmm.
loving your neighbor,
Yep.
all that stuff that we need more of.
Yep.
Where it gets tricky and people might get tripped up is oh, my religion's better than yours, and I don't want to get into that type of thing. 'Cause
No.
at the end of the day, all the values are the same.
Absolutely.
There's a greater purpose that we're working with is
Yep.
trying to help us, and you just got to tap into that and be the best person you can be,
Yep.
and you owe it to yourself and the people around you to do it.
Absolutely.
And that's really neat. So you've kind of carried those values and those principles into how you coach your kids' teams and how you lead your
Absolutely.
teams. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And it's worked out well for you so far.
So far, and I try to be respectful, and in my team, I have people that have various religions, and
Yeah.
I'm very respectful of that,
Mhm.
and whatnot. But it's important to me that people understand where I come from.
Mhm.
So we have conversations about all of it, and I can tell them, why I'm thinking what my thought process is. So
Yeah.
so far, so good.
I think it's an important part because a lot of that is the driving force behind people.
Absolutely.
And I think core desire for a lot of people, myself, I'm no different. It's like you want people to care about you. You want
Hmm.
people to acknowledge you. You want to be able to be yourself around others.
Hmm.
I think that's like the whole psychological safety aspect. It's not I'm trying to fit into this box or I'm trying to be somebody else because I need to be for this person or this team. Because I've found I've tried to fit in those boxes, man. It doesn't work out. It might be short term, but sooner or later, it's so exhausting mentally, spiritual, all this stuff. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I've never tried to fit any box. Like at the end of the day, I don't know that I want to be remembered for my title or who I work for.
mhm,
It's really three things: faith, hope, and love.
mhm,
I want to be remembered for someone that was very faithful to his wife and to his job and
mhm,
to his mission. Someone that loved people greatly and loved his job and was committed to what he did. And then someone that inspired hope, because I think our world needs it right now. There's a lot
oh
of
yeah,
very crazy things happening right now. So in every room, that I step in, those are really the three things that I want to lean on to.
So when you talk to people about this, because you've been in construction at the same time as me, maybe 20 years,
20 years, yep.
when you have these conversations with construction people, do
Mm.
they look at you funny? Are
They
people
they
pretty receptive to it?
I think because I'm consistent
Yeah,
in my messaging and very even keel in how I approach things. I think
yeah.
they've come to say that's Marius and accept it for what it is. I'm pretty sure at the beginning it's like,
The hell's wrong with this guy?
exactly, what's up with this guy?
Yeah,
But because I am consistent in what I say and what you and people can expect, I
yeah,
think they just come to respect that and that's it.
yeah. So let's switch gears a little bit here.
Yes,
So
sir.
on, so your current role now, you're director of special projects.
Mm-hmm.
That team didn't exist before.
Nah.
So tell me about how, first of all, what did it look like from a higher level on determining the business need?
Yep.
And then once that was determined, like you had to build a team.
Mm-hmm.
So you look after estimating and operations.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that look like developing that whole process?
It was the need for we needed to strengthen our relationship with subcontractors in the market. We needed to create a platform to do what I enjoy most is helping train and develop people. And we also needed to diversify our business portfolio. Those were some of the key reasons. Really, the beginning, day one, was firing myself in
Mhm.
my head and saying, I've hired now the best leader that I respect, and this person has been wildly successful.
Mhm.
And then what did that person do? What was the mindset that they had?
Mhm.
What hires did they make? And then working back from there. And so that's what I did. So I fired myself from day one, and then I started. I spent 6 months of trying to decipher what the person that I hired
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
and then writing a business plan, a strategic plan, and that worked. So it was a lot of it was 6 months of planning and whatnot. And in that process, I realized that my background uh, would have been a limitation for me because I was heavily pre-construction and I didn't have an operation background and business development, especially networking with clients, was not something that I had done before.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also grow fast. I didn't want to be to start a division that would grow slowly.
Mhm.
So really, I realized from that moment that the most important hire would have been someone that complements my weaknesses.
Right.
And so hired Jane, to be my operations manager and really to be my partner.
Yeah.
So our relationship from day one was one of, Jane, it will be weird for you, but you'll report to someone that knows nothing about what you do, and but someone that you need to teach a lot to.
Yeah.
And so we had an interesting and trust, a relationship really built on trust, and
Yeah.
and started flying.
So a couple of things there come to mind. I was in a similar spot actually when I started at Black and Mac where we
Hmm.
met. So I was hired as chief estimator with no estimating experience,
Didn't know that.
which was ironic, or maybe that's not the right word. I
Hmm.
thought it was a little bit silly. But anyway, I was very good at project management.
Hmm.
I understood how a job came together, and that's what they were looking for, a skill set that could work with the estimator on paper
Hmm.
and help conceptually build the job. So I remember very early on, and I was working with some 60-year-old estimators who worked at the big mechanical Sayers and Modern Agri, all that stuff.
Hmm.
So I had a meeting and I said, like, look, guys, you all know more than me. And I just opened up with honesty. I led with
Hmm.
that. And some people, it took a while for them to come around. I
Hmm.
think they really appreciated that.
Absolutely.
It goes back to the whole genuine and authenticity piece.
Hmm.
And that's how you kind of connect with people. You mentioned a word that I think is very important and missing in the world of construction today, trust,
Hmm.
because it's the foundation of a good relationship.
Yes.
Whether it's a coworker, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a subcontractor, whether it's a
Any
GC,
any human
any any
interaction.
any
Yep.
human interaction,
Yep.
relationships based on trust. What does that mean to you? Like how do you build trust? And first of all, do you agree with me that it might be an issue in construction now? And if so, how can we make it better?
I think it's an issue. I agree. Just and there's a lot of statistics that you can look at to point out to that, whether it's looking at claims or even the nature of the contracts, the supplementary conditions and the terms of the contract and whatnot. To me, I see a lot of those changes, and I think it just boils down to people, be it owner and contractors or subcontractors, that don't necessarily trust each other.
Yeah.
And that I think gone at the time, like my dad would say, where you could build a project based on a handshake,
Hmm.
and trust that, you're dealing with someone that will deliver on the services that they committed to. And so, to me, especially with my human interaction with people, I usually lead from a place of trust is given and mistrust is earned.
Hmm.
And and I usually say that to people, especially people that work in my team. I always make it a point to tell them, with me, I trust, but mistrust is earned.
Yeah.
And so it will not be an accident if we get to a point where, all of a sudden we realize that I don't trust you is because you've earned that mistrust. But from the get go, you're part of this team because I believe you have the competency and ability to be able to deliver on what you said you could.
Yeah.
And if there is ever a challenge along the way, I'm not perfect either. Please raise your hand and we can figure it out together. And when people don't follow some of those guidelines that I lean on heavily, it becomes challenging for me.
Right. I think, yeah, there's probably two camps, and I'm with you. I think trust is it's just inherent in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think there's a lot of people that I've encountered where it's built up over time. And it's not that they're bad people, it's just everybody's wired differently. And I find people who have been burned the worst,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
you develop trust issues. And like I don't mean that in like a bad way or demeaning way. It's like I don't blame you. You have your personal experiences, and that's what you base your life decisions off of, is
Mm-hmm.
what happened to you in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's a very important aspect. Uh, so construction isn't always sunshine and rainbows, right?
No.
Things are going good. I love team building events, and at the beginning of a contract with a design build team, or you go out on social events and you go to the bar and you do all this stuff. But then the shit eventually hits the fan.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of a time when you had that type of experience, maybe on a project or in your career, and maybe you thought like
Hmm.
you had to make a tough decision on whether or not to like stay where you are, or
The 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 I don't curse much, but the shit hitting the fan event in my career thus far has probably been the 2008 recession.
yeah,
So I'm in Boston, and having the time of my life at a company that I greatly enjoyed working for, and thought I'd be there for the rest of my career. The culture, the environment, the vibe, the projects, everything was just of, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Then out of nowhere, this recession happened, and a year after, in 2009, I kept seeing a lot of my friends, getting let go, and I knew I was doing a good job, and they were telling me, you have a bright future here, and we want to keep you. And one day they called and they said, we unfortunately have to leave you, let you go.
Yeah.
And that rocked me.
Mhm.
And although I could see it coming, I thought, I would somehow make it through. And what made it difficult is that I was under a sponsored visa, and I
Okay.
had 6 months to either find a job with an employer that was willing and able to sponsor me as well, or if not, leave the country. And so the next 6 months were very stressful.
Mhm.
But looking back now, I think that happened for me to be here.
Yeah.
Because after that experience, I was fortunate. I did find an employment and stayed in the US for another 2 years. But the experience of, having to uh, find employment with someone that would sponsor your visa, I think left a lasting impact for my wife and I. And we decided, to apply for a permanent residency in Canada, and decided to move here in 2009 because we
Mhm.
didn't want to go through that again.
Yeah. No, and that must have been stressful, man. I'm
Mm.
sorry to
Yeah.
hear that one. So I have a bit of a similar experience, not specific to the visa or
Mm-hmm.
anything, but
Mm-hmm.
in job loss.
Mm-hmm.
So mine was around COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and we had just found out we were pregnant with our third after a few years of fertility issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we were not in a good spot
Mm-hmm.
mentally,
Mm-hmm.
relationship wise. And then we found out we got pregnant March 2020, the week before
Yeah, yeah.
the big 2 week COVID
COVID.
shutdown.
Yep. Yep.
And then and so there was my employment was impacted by that. They had to make some decisions for the company.
Mm-hmm.
So newly pregnant wife, trauma from fertility issues,
Mm-hmm.
job loss,
Mm-hmm.
COVID.
Wow.
And looking back now, I'm like, how did we make it through that? Like, I don't know if you look back on that time and be like, when you add up all that stuff, literally, how did we make it through?
Mm-hmm.
And
Resiliency.
resiliency.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it taught me.
Yeah, yeah.
Resiliency, because there's really no option but through.
Mm-hmm.
Like that,
That's it.
you got to keep going. And I probably had the most growth in my life at that time because I was challenged the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned the importance of resiliency, what it actually meant,
Mm-hmm.
and the impermanence of life.
Absolutely.
Not life itself.
Yeah.
Well, life itself too,
Yeah, yeah.
but different periods of life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been in situations where I'm like, fuck, I'm on top of the world. This is amazing. And then boom. And then
That's
and
how it
I've been in
usually
times where I'm
goes.
like, oh man, this is terrible. Like, I don't know if I could get, and then, but nothing lasts. The good
Nothing
times and the
lasts.
bad times. It's just all part of life, man. You
Well,
just keep going.
it's a roller coaster. When
Yeah.
you're on top, just get ready to go down, and when
Yeah.
you're down, know that you're gonna go up at some point.
There was so, I don't know if you're into music, like John Prine, he's like singer
Don't know
songwriter from
him.
the 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, he passed away during COVID, and John Mayer said something about him. And he was talking about how special of a songwriter he was. And he goes, there's three types of people in life. There's the ones who are on the roller coaster
Mm-hmm.
and they're clutching the sides and they're freaking out and they don't know what's going on. And he said, there's other people who know it's a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just kind of going with the ups and downs.
Yep.
And then the third type, he said, was John Prine. He goes, they're the kind of people that make eye contact with the operator.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've learned in life, man. Sometimes it's crazy, but I believe it's all part of your growth. It's all part of your story. And it's just a chapter in your book.
That's it.
And
That's it.
it's not done until
Yeah.
she's done for good.
Absolutely. Yes, I love music. Didn't know John, but he
Yeah.
sounds inspirational. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
One of my favorite is James Taylor.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he says the secret of life is enjoying the passage of time.
Yeah.
So I love that. And then, it's one that I'm teaching my kids as well. I know my daughter Sydney loves that line.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Though. That's what it's all about. And I'm glad you're teaching them those stories young. So we kind of touched on kind of touched on this earlier, but something I'm passionate about is like psychological safety and
Mhm.
belonging and having everybody fulfill their potential, like
Mhm.
you mentioned. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like at least the training I've received and been exposed to in construction, it's very technical.
Mhm.
Like, this is how you use the software. This is the SOP for that. This
Mhm.
is like the project management system. But there's not a lot of training on how to deal with people. I mean, effective communication, uh, de-escalating conflict, which there's a ton of in construction,
Mhm.
and just helping people achieve their full potential. So you kind of mentioned that's an important aspect to you. How do you approach that with your team, whether it's a coach for your kids' team or your the team you lead at work?
Yeah, so I approach it from personal experience. I'm not gonna name them, but there's a company that I worked for, um, that is not listed on my resume
Yeah.
because they didn't deserve me, and but my experience, although short-lived there, taught me a lot about, what it is, to be a leader and the responsibility that comes with it,
Hmm.
and creating environment, where people can truly be themselves. There is no job bigger to me than creating an environment where, people can deliver their best and be themselves. And I live life knowing that, my realities are not necessarily your realities, and because we all live different lives. We have, and we have, there's one selves, there's not multiple,
Yeah.
and things that happen at home impact, whatever happens at work, and people have different needs. Give it If there's, just starting up a family and they have a young child, there's all these things that you have to take in consideration. So I love people dearly, and so I always I'm curious, about, what could be going on, with people. And so going back with this company where I was, I found myself, in my early 20s crying a lot at work.
Yeah.
And after a while, I decided to leave of my own. But then, I learned a lot of valuable, lessons about what not to do,
Mhm.
and to make sure that, when people, come to work, that they feel safe, they feel they can speak up. To me, it's kind of like raising kids. You tell your kids, how you react to when they mess up would inform their decision on, how they speak up next time.
Yeah.
Did they come to you and say, "Hey, Daddy, I made a mistake," or and whatnot? So for me, I share my failures with my team,
Yeah.
because people usually look at me and think I have it all figured out. No, I don't. I've made mistakes, so I share them, and just to encourage people to be able to not put that pressure on themselves to be perfect, because
Yeah.
perfection is doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
We
No.
can aspire to it, but it doesn't exist. And we can aspire to be excellent, but don't put that pressure on yourself, especially in our industry where things are so complex and the
Yeah.
jobs are so complex, and the buildings and structures that we build are so complex. So it's letting people know that they're not alone. They're part of a team, and there is a lot of different expertise around them that can provide support. So instead of sitting there, isolating yourself and ruminating those thoughts and those, just pick up.
Yeah.
And so really it's been a year now that I decided to step out of my comfort zone and join our National Wellbeing Committee at Pomerleau,
Okay.
where, we talk about, psychological safety, mental health,
Mm.
and creating really an environment where people can thrive.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, and I'm very happy to hear that Pomerleau has a program like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know other places I've worked and people I've talked to, almost all companies, bigger companies, have like an EAP, right, employee
Mm-hmm.
assistance program,
Mm-hmm.
which is better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's reactive and it's just a resource there. It's, you give somebody a pamphlet.
Mm-hmm.
These committees, and I've talked to people at Elliston and other big nationals, is they're being more proactive about it.
Mm-hmm.
So by going upstream, yeah, you need the EAP in those types of situations, but let's attack the problem upstream so it doesn't get to the point that the person's in crisis and
Absolutely.
needs to. And you're not going to hit everybody, like you're not going to get every target, but You
Yeah.
got to try.
You
And
have to try,
I think
and
people appreciate that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've polled our employee, and we've done some surveys internally just to see what, resonate. And interestingly enough, I think when it comes to mental health and psychological safety, I think our employees are telling us they'd like to hear from more leaders
Yeah.
about, the human side of
Yeah.
construction.
Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. Shameless plug.
Yeah.
They want to hear more about, their human perspective,
Yeah.
because they see the leaders as people that have it figured out, but I've been close enough to some of them to know that they are human and they have challenges just like they do. So I think the data is telling us that, employees want to hear more from their leaders about some of the challenges that they're having, because ultimately I think they just want to be able to relate and know that, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by people that have experienced the same challenges that I've experienced, and this is how they went through and solved them.
I think that goes back to the whole belonging thing, right? Like
Hmm.
if you, and I agree 100%, you have to lead from the top, like leaders lead by example. And
Hmm.
it's not just this is how you properly execute a contract or this is how you, no, it's be human,
Hmm.
be relatable.
Absolutely.
Because if you sit and say a speech, it's like, yes, we care about mental health, but people don't feel safe to open up. It's actually does worse. I
Hmm.
think it's more detrimental
Hmm.
talking about it and not walking the walk.
Hmm.
So it's good to see that you're doing that. I lost my train of thought because I was going somewhere else with it. But yeah, the belonging aspect.
Hmm.
So when people feel that, they can show up as their authentic selves because it's demonstrated by other people on the team, especially the leadership, I think that's a huge factor to attraction, but also retention of employees.
Absolutely.
So you probably see some impacts there. Um, so, working at different companies, I've worked at a bunch of different companies myself. We talked about kind of, I almost look at it as the analogy of I've been taking Lego from different Lego sets and building my own like super figure here.
Hmm.
And so what are 2 or 3 things you've picked up at working for different companies that mean a lot to you and really kind of helped you get to the point you're at now in your career? Could be a specific skill set or maybe a mentor you had along the way or, 2 or 3 pieces that helped to build the Super Marius we see today.
There's nothing super about me. I am. That's an interesting question. Um,
Maybe I'll ask it in a different way. What if you had to pick 1 or 2 things that have propelled you to the level you're at now, like you're in the senior level
yeah,
at
yeah,
a big company,
yeah,
what are those things that you could identify that kind of helped you get there?
yeah. I'd say the first thing that I'd say is probably hold um the destination probably loosely,
Hmm.
because I surround myself, because even where I am today was not is probably not something that I had envisioned
Yeah.
or had in plan. And I've talked to enough leaders that would tell me that um, the road the road that I took to get where I am is not necessarily what I had in mind. So the advice is probably hold
Yeah.
that destination probably loosely, and probably be curious, and be a sponge,
Yeah.
and learn. It's probably That's probably how I've gotten here. Um, I I I- I've been blessed with a work ethic, a great work ethic that started from young. A great sense of accountability, and that started probably with my dad blaming me for everything that went wrong.
Yeah.
So in every endeavor that I get myself into, it's not really about what my manager or boss
Hmm.
says. It's really, that for me, the expectation I set them for myself, and I set them really, really high. So I'd say set high expectation for yourselves, hold the destination loosely, and be willing to put in the work for it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a lot of good advice. I always like to say the journey is the destination
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I've been at different points in my life where it's like, once I get here, I'll be good. And then you get there and you're like,
That ain't it.
oh, look, and then once I get here, I'll be good.
Yeah,
And the goalpost just keeps moving.
it does.
And there's no destination, man. It's all about the journey.
Hmm.
Is there a person that you can think of that had a big impact on your life, like whether it was a mentor or a coach or? Maybe it's your dad. So you're,
Absolutely, my dad, and then I'd say my wife as well. Similarly to you, we have a lot of
yeah.
similarities, and we'll be coming up on 20 years as well in January. But she's always encouraged me to to push, and when I took on the job that whenever I wasn't ready for, and knew that I needed to devote a lot of time to learn what that job is, and sacrifice time with family.
Mhm.
She's just like, I got home, you
Mhm.
do what you need to do. And so there's been days, where I'm in the office at 4 a.m. in the morning, and she's like, just go do you.
Yeah.
Or I come back late at 10, 11. No questions asked. So I think it's really important to have a great support system, and I've
Mhm.
been blessed to be able to do life with someone that understands, that I have great passion for what I do, and so I work crazy odd hours when I get inspired, and
Yeah.
and 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 she's okay with that, and she trusts me to be able to do what I have. And besides that, I've had incredible mentors, whom when I was young and probably wasn't ready
Yeah.
for a specific task or a job, they trusted me, and they said, "Go do it." And and my Bible teaches me that whomever can be trusted with very little can be trusted with very much.
Mhm.
So really, the decision, even to go into this journey with special projects, was to be able to create a platform where people can build that confidence in the abilities by managing still complex projects, but
Yeah.
that are on a smaller scale, and build the confidence that they can, whenever they get called up to work on the mega projects, that they've honed their skills and
Mhm.
are able to be up to the challenge.
I think that's an important thing. And before I move on, it's your wife's birthday today too, right? Is
Yes,
it a special shout out?
absolutely.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, baby. May the Lord give you many, many more years.
Nice. Yeah, on the special project stuff, I agree. That's a good place to cut your teeth
Mm-hmm.
because you're involved in a longer life cycle. Like you're involved in more of the life cycle on a
Mm-hmm.
project. Because I've been on big projects where it's 5 years and it's just a slow grind.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been on the special project side where you're working on 5 different projects at different parts of the
Mm-hmm.
life cycle. So
Mm-hmm.
it gives you better exposure to
Absolutely.
the different parts, whether it's pre-construction or execution, commissioning, training, all that stuff. It's an
Absolutely.
important part for
Yeah,
most
and,
people.
and well, and you also have to make sure that you balance the needs for the client. So my job is making sure that we have a core special project team that's very experienced,
Mhm.
to ensure that we provide a quality service to our clients. So it's mixing experience with, I don't want to say youth, but with people that need to hone their skills.
Yeah.
So it's we build a strong, experienced core special project team, that's stable and able to, and also has a desire and a love for training and coaching,
Yeah.
and then make sure that we wrap our hands around the people that need the coaching and training, and knowing that 2-3 years from now they're going to be very good people that
Mhm.
can go on into other parts of our business and to do better and greater things.
I think one of the challenges a lot of companies face now is retaining good young people.
Hmm.
And I think money has something to do with it. But it's
Hmm.
not all about money. I find younger generations, they're more about purpose and personal growth.
Absolutely.
So if you can offer that different types of experiences, different types of challenges,
Hmm.
because growth doesn't necessarily mean salary increase or a title bump. It could be a different set of responsibilities, a different project.
Hmm.
So when you have somebody who's maybe has 2 to 5 years experience and they're tired of just issuing RFIs on it, you know what I mean? They
Yeah,
can get out in the field, do some site
absolutely.
walks, they can learn different things. And
We've
that
seen
sounds
that.
like a great strategy
Exactly.
for, yeah.
We've seen that. We've had people that on a larger project were just responsible for doing door and hardware, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Yeah, I don't want to do that." And then they
Yeah.
come in special project, and they have elevated responsibilities,
Mhm.
and they feel challenged. They feel pushed, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How can people learn more about you? I know you post on LinkedIn sometimes. Is that a good place to connect or?
That's probably the only place I
Yeah.
post because I am not a social media guy. It's been over 20 years now, and I still don't have a Facebook account.
Oh, good.
So
Good for you, man.
exactly. So LinkedIn is probably the only place that I post. Besides work, I value my time greatly.
Yeah.
So time with my wife and kids is really important to me. I coach basketball, and and I have a commitment at church as well. So
Yeah.
so
Busy guy.
busy guy. I'm in
Yeah.
the phase of my life, where I have a lot of different interesting priorities. So yeah.
So last question here. I always like to ask people this: if you could get in a time machine and go back and talk to 20-year-old Marius, and you maybe just had 5 minutes with him, like what would you tell him, knowing what you know now?
Knowing what I know now, I I would probably tell him the quotes that I told you earlier. Your life, Marius, is a gift from God. What you make of it is your gift to God. Do not spend or waste any time arguing about your limitations, whether visible or in your melon. But if you agree with God about your potential, you will get time to grow into it and be on the journey. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Super inspirational. Appreciate it. Uh, Thanks for joining for the human side of construction. If you have a similar story or you want to talk about uh, stuff your company's doing to solve the challenges we're facing, please reach out. Happy to connect, see how we can work together. Marius, thanks a lot, buddy. Appreciate it. The shake on camera here. And yeah, see you next time.